I had every type of medication you could think of. I never took them, but I remember that same therapist saying to me, and I've just been given that, what do you think? And she just said, look, Michelle, you are now like over a year down the line. Something's got to give. Like, you can't go on like this. And I remember saying, don't see like it being forever. It's not going to be something that you're going to be taking for the rest of your life. Why don't we do it for 2 weeks? In 2 weeks' time, we'll review it. And then after those 2 weeks, we'll see what we're going to do after then. So I did. It wasn't anything that was strong. It was just an antihistamine. But even antihistamine, I was so scared.
Yeah.
But then those antihistamines did help. But then that then created another problem, because antihistamines were amazing. It would make me sleep straight away.
Yeah.
I would wake up feeling very groggy the next day.
Right.
But then after maybe a week or two, you would then need 2 antihistamines because your body had got used to it. And then it was then 3 antihistamines and then 4 antihistamines. And eventually I got myself up to 5 antihistamines a night.
So at what point was it that made you seek therapy? What was the point where you went, okay, enough with the GPs, they're not helping, they're just overprescribing, I don't feel heard, I don't feel... And I loved how you said that. That was the first time when you went to therapy and you said, I felt heard and safe and listened to. And that's such a big compliment to that therapist that you saw. But at what point did you go, I need to see someone?
So it was around the year mark. And as I said, I hadn't slept.
Right.
There hadn't been one single night.
So hard.
And none of my family were experiencing it as bad as what I was. Obviously, they were having sleep issues, but I remember my sister, my younger sister, saying to me, just go to bed and go to sleep.
Oh.
I don't understand.
Just don't feel your feelings.
Yeah.
She would sleep like a baby.
Yeah.
And she would still be tired the next day.
Okay.
And we'd all meet up and she'd say, I'm exhausted. And I would think, Jesus, like, I haven't slept.
Literally. Yeah.
But it got to a point where I stopped talking about it as well, because I thought, oh my God, like, I'm saying it out loud, and now it's making me more consciously aware.
Say that again. I
And then
was
it
saying it
creates
out loud.
A self-fulfilling prophecy, and you're then...
Yeah. You're on a loop. You're living out your narrative.
Yes.
Living out your story.
Then I actually said to my husband, and this was a recommendation from my therapist, she said, do you talk about it to your husband? And I said, yeah, every single morning he will say, how did you sleep? Every single morning I will say, really bad.
Yeah.
But she said, try this. Why don't you say to him, like, I don't want to talk about sleep anymore. If I'm feeling really bad, then we'll talk about it. So he stopped asking. And it helped a little bit because it took that pressure away.
Yeah.
But to answer your question, so it had been another night of no sleep. And I just thought, I can't go on like this. I just knew something had to give. I contacted a number of people. And then, because I didn't really know how to go about it either, and it was not something that I wanted to ask family. Have you spoken to anyone?
Yeah.
Still a bit stigmatized.
Finding a therapist is, I don't know, like when you want to find a hairdresser or a dentist, you'd go with recommendations because everybody needs a hairdresser, everybody needs a dentist to ask people. Whereas a therapist, not many people go to therapy and not many people talk about therapy. So I didn't have anyone that I could ask. And I remember thinking, if I did ask that person, I'll offend them, because then they might think, well, what, do you think I need therapy?
Yeah. What makes you think I do it? Yeah.
Randomly, I met a friend at a park and I was explaining to her about my sleep and blah, 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 blah. I've got this really amazing person. She's really helped with my daughter's sleep. I think she'd be really good for you. So I made contact with her. Her name was Hannah. And she was just like a friend. Like, I would phone her, we'd book dates in, and we met physically once. Do that, and I think I spoke to her maybe for about 4 months, and she really helped. And it got to a point where, whilst my sleep wasn't majorly improved, I have to say it didn't really help my sleep. It just helped having somebody that I didn't know listen to me and help me make sense of my feelings, and I learned a lot from her as well.
It's like the best thing you can hear, because it normalizes it for a lot of people. And for me, I'm so pro therapy, I forget that someone could be embarrassed about
Yeah,
that. Like I talk about my two therapists.
Yep.
And I think it's so important. I think everyone should have a great therapist. Everyone. Even if there's nothing wrong, like just take it, check in and learn about yourself and
because it's learning, and that's the key word that I believe there's this misconception, because you go to therapy because it's a problem. Go to therapy to learn, A master's in psychology and getting there is at least 10 years of study.
Yeah.
They know something.
They might.
Oh, a little bit. But what I wanted to just go through now, just quickly, because I think it might also help listeners as well. But there's a model that I was introduced to by a therapist, a trauma therapist, Bill O'Hanlon. Amazing. If you can Google him, I'll put in the show notes, whatever it is. Anyway, he developed a concept suggesting that if you have these 3 key elements in your healing journey, the process becomes more effectively transformative. Okay, and it's the 3 C's framework. And I'm wondering, as you hear this, whether you can hear that, tick, 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 and relate to it. So the first one is compassion. Okay, and if the painful experience has helped you develop a deeper compassion, not just for yourself, which is so important, but for others, then that's a profound transformation.
I definitely agree.
Just you talking today, I can hear.
I can hear
it. It's such a feat of you and your journey, the compassion that not just for yourself, because I can hear how much compassion you have, but for others as well.
When you've been there and you know how deliberating it is, and you honestly think that it's going to be like that forever. And if I could help as many people as possible to understand that it doesn't always have to be that way, and it won't always be that way. You can turn that pain into a purpose, and you can also help others as well.
And so the next one is the connection. If you've been able to have this connection where you've brought yourself a connection closer to yourself and to others, and you've found this greater sense of meaning or spiritual purpose, because of the devastating loss, that's this meaningful form of growth, and which is what you just said. Yes, connection, you can relate to that. And the last one, and I think this is the one that you do so well, and that's the contribution, right? That you've found a way to turn your experience into something that helps others create a positive change. And even if it's in a small way, and yours is a huge way from where I'm sitting, but you've been able to give almost like it's a gift back into the world, which is just what you've just said. If I can just help one person, 2 people, like that is such a big thing. It's not an expectation, it's just possibilities, right? That the gentle ways that grief can reshape us and evolve us as well. It's your tragedy has turned into your life mission. Almost. I mean, I can hear all this growth that's happened, which is so extremely.
Do you know what's one say I would add for Michelle?
Oh, yes.
Yeah. Like, you are just so composed. Like, every single thing, these are the compassion, contribution, but you are just so composed. The composure is because you have journeyed and you have gone on such a deep process. Like, you haven't just done the feet, like you have deep dived into that so fully and really pushed yourself out of your comfort zone. Okay, to me, therapy is just obvious, like we would do that, right? But for you, like that wasn't true at that moment, and yet you still tried 7 therapists, and then you finally, thank God, found one that was fit. And then you didn't stop there. Like, it speaks to your character, but it also, like, you've integrated this tragedy into something so meaningful that is obviously going to ripple out and influence so many other people, like in a positive way. There's nothing more beautiful.
No,
than that.
and
Nothing.
no, and
it says such a huge
and it's that energy that I was talking about earlier. With anger, we know what to do with it, but with grief, there's this energy, and you don't know what to do with it. And you've taken that energy, and you've been able to transform it into this growth.
You have choices, right? So you can either grieve daily and look at it in a positive way or a negative way, and I've chosen to turn it into a positive And that has been a journey. It's not always been like that.
No.
And that's for all of us as a family.
Yeah.
We've all gone through a journey together, and each of our journeys have been very different. But one thing that we have all learnt from it is that life is just so short, so short. And that's the one thing that stays within me every single day, like regardless of how I've slept. I'll still get up, I'll still be there for the children, I'll still go and meet a friend or do something, because I just think life is so short and you genuinely never know what is around the corner. And I turned 39 in February, and that's how old my sister was when she died. And for a couple of years, I've had an anxiety about turning 39 plus 2 months, because that's how old she was. And I never said it to anybody. And then a couple of weeks after my birthday, I spoke to my husband about it, and he said, "Why have you never told me about this?" And I just thought, if I say it, then it just sounds a bit silly. But I was genuinely really anxious about turning 39. And I said to my mum as well about it just recently, and we laughed it off. I said, "I'm still here though."
Bless. Thank God.
Thank God.
Yeah.
But yeah, I think if I could take anything from our journey, is that just do everything that you possibly can, and do if there's things that you don't want to do, don't do them. And that's what's changed me as well. If I don't want to go somewhere, I won't go. And my husband says I'm brutal, but if I don't want to be somewhere,
absolutely,
I just won't go. I love my own company.
I never met you before, okay? But I can imagine that you were not the same person that you were 5 years ago, and not just in a linear way.
And I don't think you would have been
transformation. Like, I think that's what's happened.
I remember my mother-in-law saying to me, this was before I had my first daughter, and she said, "What you want when you're 18 is not what you want when you're 21. What you want when you're 21 is not what you want when you're 30. Your life changes so much." And I remember thinking, what does she know? It's so true. Like, when I look back to when I was 18, 21, when I turned 30, even now, like, I'm going to be 40 in a few months, but I feel the happiest I've ever felt, and the strongest I've ever felt mentally.
Wow.
And physically as well. I go to the gym, which I've always been quite an active person anyway, but I now make sure that I move every single day, because I know it makes me feel good.
Yeah.
But yeah, I just...
like a stepping into your power. It just feels like that. And I know we haven't met your husband, obviously. You know, he sounds like such a support. Like, he just sounds like we can't do anything alone. We have these support people that are in our corner, and it just feels that's very secure in you, and it's allowed you to do these things and to step into that, which I think is something that we sometimes overlook. Like, this is your story, but it's also your husband's story and your family's story and your children's story.
Yeah.
And I just want to, can we end on just this beautiful, we were saying it before, but I hope Michelle doesn't mind retelling this story. And I know Von and I felt really excited when we put this post out there about please share your stories. And then when yours came in and Von's like, we've got this amazing one. I'm like, oh my God, that is perfect, totally perfect. Because the topic, and it's so personal to you, but it is something that we're all going to go through. Yeah. There is not one person in the world that will not experience grief at some point. So being able to share that and hearing the sort of positive things that can come out of it eventually, the beautiful things. But I think your 6-year-old really sums up the level of stigmatization of this as a topic. But can you say a little bit, when you were telling her what you were going to do today and come on the podcast?
Last night I was telling my daughter about what I was doing, and I was explaining what a podcast is and what we'll be talking about. And she said, "So who will you talk about?" And I said, about Auntie Sarah, because we talk about Auntie Sarah quite a lot, and about what it feels like to lose somebody and the impact that it has on your feelings, and sometimes it makes those feelings really big. And she said, "But why are you telling everybody?" And I said, "To help, to make sure that everyone knows that it's good to talk about it." And she said, "But I thought it was a secret." And you could see in her little eyes, she was genuinely thinking, "What? Hold on a minute. I thought it's a secret when someone dies. You don't talk about it."
Yeah.
And I said, "What, did you honestly think that?" And she said, "Yeah." And it blew my mind. And I feel thankful that I've actually learned that she thought that. So now I can just teach her that it's okay to talk about anything.
Yeah.
And I think it's important to talk about also, not just that, but like death to children at a younger age, so they know it's not a secret, and it's you're able to go and speak about it and speak on the topic, and also help them how to process it as well, because they're little and you're able to.
Yeah, and you never know what they're thinking either, and when they're so young. So I remember in December just gone, I was driving with my youngest, so at the time she was 4, and we'd just been to the beach with some friends, and I don't know how we came about it, but she said, "Mummy, will you die one day?" And we were on Hesse Street, and you know what the traffic's like. It was a nightmare. It was a Friday as well. It was like 5 o'clock. And I said, "No, of course I'm not." And she said, "But will you die one day?" But I think her brain had just started to learn that in life that is what happens. Or maybe they'd talked about it at school, I don't know. But she was hysterical to the point I had to pull over. So, you know where Waitrose is, I ended up having to pull into there and just reassure her. She was so upset, bless her. And my point is that you don't know what they're thinking and how they're thinking about it. So to talk about it and help them make sense of it, it really helps, because her little brain had obviously learnt something to do with death.
Yeah. And developmentally, it's actually at that age, 4, 5, 6, 7. I work with a number of young clients, little clients with like death anxiety. And it's almost because we don't talk about it enough.
Yeah.
The way my eldest, Alexander, he was 5, and the teacher had done phonics with them, and it was Thai, and she said die. He didn't know what die was, okay? So die. And so ever since then, he's just fixated on that word, and it starts like, how do we make sense of things? And even as adults, how do we make sense of it? It's the enormity of it, the existentialist of it. But even at that age, we can talk about it in a way that reassures them. And I'd love to hear how you explain it to your boys. It's something that with Alexander especially, I'm like, yeah, but you're going to be 130, but he's like, am I going to die? I'm like, you're all going to die, but we're going to be so old, like super old. Look how old you young, blah. They look like my parents are 80, but they could be 100. Like, see, people who live a long, happy life. So a developmentally like reasonable answer to it, okay, that doesn't make them upset, but that also honours the truth of it, that we are all going to die.
Yeah, and I think that's the important part. It's the truth of it. And I hope that's what this podcast allows as well, the fact that we should talk about it a lot more, not just to our children, but we should be talking to people who have grieved or are grieving at the moment. Talk to them about it. Ask them, what's a great memory?
I think for anybody, regardless of like children, adults, and it's a case and example of my husband. He'd lost his dad a year before, and he never dealt with those feelings, and he was super close to his dad. And we then carried on living, and we were both thriving in our careers, and we were just very busy all the time. And then when my sister then died, it just brought everything back. And because he'd never dealt with those feelings, it was just...
Absolutely.
Yeah, and back then you wouldn't have known to talk to your fiance about it.
And I remember at the time there was a number of situations that we'd been in within our marriage, and I remember thinking how could he think like that? Like, it's my sister. Like, he's not lost his sister. But then it wasn't until we both realised that actually he'd never dealt with his own dad's grief. So he was doing certain things as a coping mechanism, and like he never had therapy either. No. But then he did have some, and it helped.
And I think, like, I would say this, like, I'm obviously in the space and I believe in therapy, etc. But I also know it doesn't mean if someone's grieving, we don't automatically, it's not like we need to see a therapist. It's like when the time is right, and that sort of speaks to you, that's a really beautiful thing. But sometimes people within their community, within their family, can grieve and heal in a way that they didn't see a therapist. There's no one right way. Yeah.
No, exactly. It's not a one-size-fits-all. Yeah. Absolutely not.
And I think where you are as well makes a huge difference, because when I think back to it when we were in England, it was just a completely different experience for us. And then you move to somewhere like Dubai as an expat, and everything's perfect. It's like you're living in real life Instagram, and everyone's thriving in their careers, everyone's like really confident, but you don't know what's going on behind the confident small talk.
No, I'm glad you
Yeah,
said that.
I'm
And
so glad
that's
you
exactly
said that.
what it is, because that's what we were talking about between the three of us earlier. As an expat, when you go home, everyone knew who Sarah was back home.
Yeah.
Mum, dad, other sister, brother-in-law, sister-in-law, nephew, etc. But when you come out here, no one's going to say, hey, tell me some memories about Sarah, because you're still starting to form the family that you're choosing out here as an expat, right?
It has positive and negatives.
Yeah.
Though. So,
Yeah.
like the positives for me was that we could rebuild, we can restart, we can keep going. But the reality is that grief is still within you, and it doesn't go away. But in Dubai, because everyone seems to have it all together and everyone's really happy, and it's almost as an expat, there's no room for grief, because what would you have to be sad about in somewhere such as an amazing city as Dubai? And like for us personally, it's been an amazing experience, but part of you feels almost guilty because you've got this amazing life, so why should you be upset?
So interesting that you say that, because that's come up a couple of times, like in podcasts and just some interviews that we've done, where it's like, we're so blessed, surely we should just be grateful for not. But I'm more compassion, not less compassion.
Yeah.
Compassion for self, compassion for others. And I think if someone was to bump into Michelle in the street, and just composure is the word that I would say, is like, you would never know.
No.
You never know what someone's gone through and their
And that's
story.
what everyone said. Like when, as I said earlier, about when. So I set up a Just Given page and put it on my socials, and I had messages from really close friends, and they were like, I'm so sorry that I didn't know. I'd never told anyone, so there was no need for them to be sorry.
I know, but also it's ask. Right? And I think that's something that we're not doing enough of either, having really deep connections, just because of society in general at the moment with our mobile phones and technology. And I think that's so important, to be able to have deeper conversations with people, and not just on that surface level. Really find out what makes that person tick and talk to them, and that social interaction.
And as you said earlier, it's not something that happens very often these days. Like, it is just a lot of surface level chats.
Yeah.
It's very rare that people meet up like how in the old, when I say the olden days, like when our
80s,
when our parents were growing up, they would pop round to each other's houses for cups of tea and go and borrow some tea bags or whatever it was. Whereas these days, people don't have time to do things like that.
And I think as you get older, I'm speaking about myself here, okay, financial wealth, that's wonderful, it's so great, it's important. But like relational wealth and that's the thing. To be bankrupt of that is just devastating. Yeah. And I work a lot with young people, and yes, they are literally like this the whole time. Like, they're not relating. It's our fault, society's fault. But truly, and from my heart, thank you so much.
Thank you so much for having me. Even if it just helps one, two people,
it's
I
helped
really
me.
It's helped me.
Like, enormously.
You know what? It's helped me. Like, if I'm going to take a takeaway from this, it's reminded me all the friends that I have here who are grieving. Even if it's something that happened 10 years ago, because I always say the word grieving, because it's still grief. You should never be told, oh, it's been 5 years, you should move on. It's not about that. It transforms. The grief transforms, but it's always there. You always want to honour your sister. And I think if anything, that my takeaway is that I want to check in. How are you doing?
Yeah.
What's going on? Can you just tell me a memory? Tell me a memory about your loved one. I want to hear it.
And also just knowing that somebody's there for you as well. There was like another friend of mine who lost somebody again last year, and I at the beginning was texting her, she was doing what I did and just completely shut down, wasn't texting back, and then I started to phone her. And I remember reading, I think it might have been again in Mo Gawdat's book, about how he would ring somebody, and even if they didn't answer, he said, what I'm going to do for the next month, I'm going to ring you every Monday morning or whatever time it was. If you want to talk, then we'll talk. If you don't, that's fine, but I'm going to call you anyway. And I did the same to a friend. The first 3 times I phoned her, she didn't answer. The 4th time I rang her, I wasn't expecting her to answer. I was actually chopping some food up at the time. And she answered, and it just caught me off guard. And I was like, oh my gosh, she's answered. She's okay. And she just said, look, I'm so sorry. Like, this is hard. And she actually said to me, had I have known how you were feeling when you lost your sister, I'm feeling that right now. I never ever realised how hard it is. She said, obviously I knew it was hard, but I didn't realise how deep it cuts.
Yeah.
And that, again, to me, I just wanted to fly back and wrap her up, because I know the feeling. I know what she's feeling. And you just want to help. But as a friend, all you can do is be there. So from my experience and from other people that I know who have gone through grief, it does change your relationship, and that relationship becomes quite complicated. When you're grieving, you are so stripped from yourself and you're very vulnerable. So I would say to anybody, whether it's a friend or a partner or a family member, that you sit with them and support them through their grief, and don't add any further pain to what they're already experiencing, because as we know, when you're going through an unbearable loss, that grief will strip you and it knocks you off your feet, and you're in a very vulnerable place and time. So don't add any further stress or worry to the person that you're trying to support. Being there, like, I had friends eventually who were then bringing things like meals over and whatever, and even my mum, bless her, would make a huge spaghetti bolognese or a huge lasagna, and she'd bring it over, and she was going through exactly the same as what we were. But it helped to an extent, because it was just one less thing for you to think about. And I just think if somebody's going through it, just don't ever try and second guess what to do. Just go with your heart and think, what would I want? What would I want? What would help me? And more than likely, it will help that person as well.
Beautiful. Thank you, Michelle.
Thank you so much.